Welcome to High Infidelity, the best cheating videos on YouTube. If you enjoy this content, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now let's get into the video.
Nuclear ghosting revenge on cheating fiancé? I'm not sure whether this is pro-revenge, pro-nuclear retaliation, or pro-nuclear ghosting, but here goes. Myself is one of the players. Fiancé's mother time period, 2013-2016. It has clearly been many years after the occurrence, and I have practically never informed anybody in my new life about it. Tonight, I'm going to sip some fine wine and let my fingers do the talking. I believed I'd found the ideal lady. We met in our last year of college. We met at a party and clicked right away. She was a stunning blonde with sun-kissed complexion who might have passed for a model. Imagine a Kate Upton-type figure. She was gentle, sensitive, sympathetic, an excellent listener, and had a full social life. She loved my friends, and it was amazing how our friend circles melded throughout the 3 years we knew each other. Several of our buddies started dating. It was some of the most enjoyable periods of my life. I was pursuing a postgraduate degree in finance, and she had a degree in contractual law. This is just to state that we were successful in our own way, but are no slouch when it comes to appearance. 5'11", 190 pounds, and enjoyed going to the gym. I wasn't a great athlete, but let's just say I was strong. But I was / pretty timid, and I hadn't had many previous relationships before meeting her. We were captivated the first time we met. We spoke all night the first night. Then it progressed to daily texting / phone calls, weekly dates, and finally, after a year, when I began working at my new job, she moved in. I adored her family, and she adored me. Mostly her mother, for her father was aloof, as he was to everyone. It had been a whirlwind romance. I proposed to her after 2.5 years of lovely abroad holidays, hiking expeditions, and luxury vacations. Yes, she said. I was completely ecstatic. She was in charge of all wedding preparations. We were chatting about our future plans, such as purchasing a home, having children, going on family vacations together, and other similar things. Then something occurred. She seems a bit distant one evening when we both returned home to our flat. I believe I recognized it immediately away since we were usually quite loving to one another. This happened roughly once a week for the first month, after the proposal. Then it became more regular. I would have been none the wiser if it hadn't been for the fact that I used to watch a lot of Reddit on YouTube. So I waited and watched. These periods of ignoring me would only last a few hours before she was back to normal. However, after 6 months wedding in a year, she was like this virtually every night. Was still fantastic. Her relationship with her parents was still strong, but over Thanksgiving at her parents' house in Louisville, Kentucky, we lived just north of Washington, D.C., she was cold to me in front of her mother. Her mother, on the other hand, was a keen observer. I could hear them fighting at. She dragged her daughter away to speak to her. They returned to the rest of the family and continued on as if nothing had happened after some passionate but muted statements. I assumed I'd question her about it later, so I did. She was unwilling to address it and urged me to wait until we got home to do so. I accepted because I loved her and believed we could overcome any obstacle. Her mother was a more mature version of herself. The same startling appearances, just a few grays in her long, thick blonde hair. This will be crucial later. When I got home, I questioned her about it, but she refused to talk about it. After being pressured for a week, she eventually admitted that a man at her workplace was attempting to get to know her better. She wanted to be forthright, so she handed me her phone, and as I flipped through it, I realized that all of the messages that would have occurred during the periods she was withdrawing from me had been deleted. The words included nothing obscene. However, since we shared the same phone plan, I went through her phone settings and activated her locator. And I honestly believed that would convince me that she was not doing anything wrong. Was I mistaken? She had a workplace Christmas party the weekend following Thanksgiving. I had intended to attend, but I became ill with food illness and had to cancel. She had a girlfriend pick her up from our place, since they were going to drink a lot, and had a DD for the evening. We had planned to stay out all night, so I told her to have a good time and I'd see her in the morning. So, as I was sick and hardly able to get off the toilet for more than 30 minutes, I grabbed my phone and tracked her whereabouts. It began as a restaurant, then as the location of the corporate party, and finally as a bar. None of this concerned me until I saw her phone hang up at a downtown hotel. I was unhappy in more ways than 3 at this point. My butt, mouth, and now soul have all been projectile vomited out. At 2 a.m., I eventually fell asleep owing to tiredness. I awakened at 7 a.m. to find her still at the motel. She eventually returns home at lunchtime, and I am on the mend. She adores me, and I inquired about the previous night, without stating anything about knowing her whereabouts. She mentions the restaurant, the party, and the bar, but then claims to have gone to her girlfriend's place to sleep for the evening. Start with a falsehood. For the following 3 months, she must begin working 3 to 4 days a week later and later. As I begin to question her about it, she gets very defensive. When her fiancé didn't get home till late one evening, I spoke with her mother. When I confronted her mother about the Thanksgiving chat, she stated that she suspected her daughter was leaving our relationship based on how she interpreted her daughter's body language. She also said that her daughter was becoming more distant from her during their weekly texting talks. With all of this conjecture going on in my head, I kept it to myself. 2 weeks later, at work, I was assigned a new project that would need me to travel to the Midwest Monday through Friday for the following 5 weeks, beginning in 2 weeks. It came with a raise in pay, and when I told my fiancée about it, she was overjoyed. I didn't believe she was delighted for the same reasons I was. As a result, I went online and purchased 4 motion-activated spy cameras for my flat. I placed one in the living room/entryway, one in the kitchen, one in our bedroom, and one in our hallway. They were tiny and linked to the internet via a covert network, so they could not be detected on the Wi-Fi network. I password protected the cameras and waited. She had girlfriends over the first 2 evenings of my first week out and never worked late. On the 3rd night, a man arrived. I was furious. I'm in my hotel room, yelling at the monitor and calling her every name in the book. They went all the way, first on the sofa, then in our bed. She bent over backwards for him in ways I had never idea were possible. Worst of all, while I was watching them put it on, I called her to ask how her day went. When she hears her phone ring, she raises her hand to ask him to stop giving her and answers the phone. I inquire as to why she is breathing heavily, and she responds that she is in the gym working out. She returns to doing the dirty as soon as the call is ended. When I arrived home Friday evening, I ignored her and went straight to bed, then woke up early Saturday to go riding. I was so outraged that I didn't know I'd ridden my bike more than 50 miles from our apartment. I had previously ridden my bike for 30 kilometers, but on that particular day, I covered 105.6 miles. I bathed after returning home, quite fatigued. Then she and I went out that evening, had a good time with our pals, and drank a LOT. Is it breakup when the person you're breaking up with is unaware? I was exploding on the inside. Heartbreak, hatred, and sentiments of betrayal surged about in my thoughts and heart. She, who used to be so attentive, was completely unaware of everything. It hurt so badly because I adored her. I eventually confided in one of our common acquaintances, who informed me that they had all been aware of it for months. They all felt terrible for me. I was ultimately informed, but no one ever said anything to me again. As a result, they no longer invite us to join them on their outings. I hadn't realized it before, but they had been inviting me less and less during the previous 3 months. So I decided to attempt to win her back, and the next weekend I arranged the whole weekend as a full weekend of treating her in every way. I wined and dined her, pampered her with massages and rubs, and spoke to her about my future ambitions and how much I loved her. I knew I was getting close when she began to weep after her 4th glass of wine, and I could see the guilt was rising to the surface. I asked her what was wrong, but every time she attempted to answer, she choked up. I then informed her that if she had done anything in her past or was experiencing some type of mental battle that she wanted to talk to me about, I was more than ready to chat with her about it. And if forgiveness was required, I was more than prepared to forgive and go on. Her only words coming out of her lips were how much she loved me. Hearing that from her stunned, since I now have 4 independent films of her and the other man in our apartment having it on. I videotaped almost 41 hours of her having with what I later discovered was her colleague during the following 8 weeks of flying to the Midwest. The trips lasted 10 weeks. She never worked late while I was away. I tried to be extra attentive every weekend, but she became more distant with each passing week. I got tired of watching this for 8 weeks, so I designed a 12-step escape strategy. Collect evidence, get her out of the way so I can carry out my plan. I booked a 2-week private getaway for us at an all-inclusive resort in Barbados. She was overjoyed. Then, a week before the trip, I said I had to cancel and advised her to bring a buddy. I knew it was over when she didn't seem disappointed that I couldn't come. She had arranged for a colleague to accompany her. Please cancel our flat contract. I was the only signatory on the lease, and it would expire 3 days into her vacation. Find work in a different place. The firm I had been aiding in the Midwest had offered me a position with a minor pay raise. Look for a new location to reside. I obtained an apartment at the aforementioned area. When she's gone, do the following. 6. Take her to the airport, then return home and pack all of her belongings, same day. Saturday 7. Get a new phone number/email address. Cancel all social media accounts. Monday 8. Financially separate us entirely. I drained all of the funds from our joint accounts and then closed them. I placed all of her money in an envelope and packaged it with her belongings. Monday 9. Have the movers pack all of my belongings and transport them west. Monday 10. Deliver all of her belongings to her mother's residence 600 miles away. My fiancé's possessions fit perfectly in the back and bed of my F-250 crew cab. From Tuesday through Saturday. 11. Hand over the proof to her mother. 12. Begin my new life. I didn't want to do anything unlawful, so I double-checked that nothing of hers was gone. It was really difficult to carefully pack all of her belongings. I'd never sobbed so hard in my whole life. I've seen a lot on Reddit about SOs stating they'll never do it again if they're caught, but they don't. My goal was that she would really confess, allowing us to forgive and move on. She was never able to. She was almost there twice, but her secret was too difficult for her to tell. Tuesday morning, I said my last goodbyes to our apartment north of Washington, D.C. Her mother's residence took 11 hours to reach. I wasn't expecting what occurred when I arrived. I arrived at her mother's place at 8 o'clock at night. I imagined she'd be startled to see me since I'd arrived unexpectedly. I had to buzz her home from the front gate since they lived in a gated neighborhood, so she was waiting for me outside when I arrived. When I approached her, I could see she had been sobbing. When I inquired what was wrong, she grabbed me and sobbed because she feared her husband was cheating on her with a much younger, skinnier, and prettier lady. I simply held her for what seemed like 10 minutes, dumbfounded. She coated my right shoulder within tears. When she had finally calmed down, I asked if we could have a private conversation. We entered, and I inquired about her husband's whereabouts, to which she said that he had stated he was going fishing with his pals in a secluded cabin an hour away. He despises fishing, she said. She told me all the cues she had picked up on, and it had evidently been going on for nearly a year. So, after doing some investigation, we discovered a credit card hold charge for a 5-star hotel that was barely 20 minutes away. Her spouse was in fact there for a 4-night visit, cheating on his lover, according to the person who answered the phone. 2 peas in a pod, I remarked. What? She asked. They're like 2 peas in a pod. I said it once again. Your spouse is unfaithful to you, and your daughter is unfaithful to me. That's why I came here to drop off her belongings and relocate to. I showed her the proof, which was in the form of screenshots in a binder. She stared at me, perplexed, after reading the first 3 or 4 pages. We both wept and held for around 30 minutes. Well, tonight, there is nothing we can do about it except for you and me to knock out these 3 bottles of Moscato, and in every room of the house, she continued, looking at me. Are you coming out here or are you going to get revenge? She said as she grabbed 2 wine glasses and a bottle of Moscato wine and strolled out to their private pool deck. I won't go into too much detail since I don't want to acquire blue balls, but we non-stopped that night and for the following 3 days. I stuffed myself into every nook and cranny her lovely body had to give. I must have seen met in or on her at least 25 times over that time span. After those days were up, we said our final goodbyes passionately and I traveled to my new location. She kept me up to date on everything that transpired when my now ex-fiancé returned. The day my fiancé returned was fantastic. I turned off my phone the morning she returned. As a result, when the aircraft landed and she phoned for a ride, the phone reported that it had been disconnected. She allegedly had her partner drive her home. He dropped her off and then drove away. When she arrived at the door, a strange pair, new renters, answered it, which terrified her out. I can't tell you how many times she attempted to phone me, but the number was no longer in service. Because her colleague was already married, she went to her girlfriend's to stay for a while. When she phoned her mother in a panic, she was informed that I had been down and left off all of her belongings, as well as all of her money, a distance of 600 kilometers. Her mother did not inform her that she had me more in 3 days than my fiancé and I had in the previous 6 months. But she did tell her that she knew she was cheating on me, and I told her that I had found a new job, a new place to live, and a new profession far away from her and all of our friends, and that her mother was divorcing her father because of adultery. She reportedly sobbed for days and took a week off work. However, she sought solace in the arms of her married boyfriend. Her mother never told her where I was. I had entirely shut that aspect of my life off. My fiancé's mother was the only connection I had to my previous life. And to this day, she has maintained our secret. The mosted fiancé was ghosted.